called Jim Palmer, who offers spiritual direction. Now let's read. Are you seeking a closer relationship with God? No, would be my answer to that. Are you interested in deepening your spiritual journey? Again, no. Are you in need of unlearning, in inverted commas, shedding or deprogramming yourself of religious pathology? No. Do you want to address the root of suffering in your life and live in peace? I don't know what that means. Have you lost yourself and wanting to undergo a process of deep self-discovery? That doesn't make any sense, that's grammatic nonsense. Do you have a nagging sense that there must be more and want to explore new spiritual vistas? No. Are you in spiritual crisis and can't seem to make heads or tails of God and truth? Again, no. Let's assume I answered yes to some of those questions, and I'll read on. There are a few of these are a few of the reasons people have contacted me over the years for spiritual direction. Spiritual direction is a process of accompanying another person on their spiritual journey, supporting and guiding them in their desire to grow closer to God and have peace. Right, okay. In spiritual direction, you reflect deeply on the experiences of your daily life. You begin to recognize God's presence and grace in your life. You come to see God or the divine present in all things. You learn to access what it means to be born of the image and likeness of God. You experience a deepening freedom, peace and contentment in your life. You become an instrument of love, peace and compassion in the world. So like an acoustic guitar. Yeah, that sounds cool. Okay. Spiritual direction is really not about being directed. Well, that's just blown my mind. I don't understand what that means. You should probably come up with a different name for it then. Rather, it is very much about being encouraged to draw closer to God. You should probably call it that then. You should probably call it encouragement to draw closer to God. That would make more sense. Spiritual direction invites you into this relationship whether you attend a church, mosque, synagogue, temple or none of these. God is relevant for all people's lives, regardless of your religious, spiritual or philosophical tradition. Yada yada yada. People come to spiritual direction for a variety of reasons, including to bullet point. Identify and trust their own experiences of God. Second bullet point. Integrate spirituality into the whole of their daily life. Third bullet point. Live with more intention and purpose. Next bullet point. Share and process hopes, hurts, struggles and losses. Next bullet point. Live the essence of your spiritual affiliation with integrity. Next bullet point. Recover themselves and become more freely self-expressed. A lot of those I think are just the same thing reworded. Some of them might be different. The privilege and responsibility of a spiritual director is to journey with you as you deepen your relationship with God. The journey takes place in the context of confidential one-on-one sessions, either face-to-face, by phone or Skype. The process involves agreeing on a convenient day and time for meeting, usually once a month for an hour or more often if you prefer. So that just sounds like having a chat, really, albeit a slightly creepy one. You know, okay, I don't have a set fee for partnering with people in spiritual direction. I leave it in their hands to make a free will donation to my PayPal account for each session, being mindful that some people seek me out for spiritual direction who are not able to contribute anything financially. The cheap bastards! Shame on you if you are getting spiritual direction and not paying for it. You are as dirty and evil as a common shoplifter. You just shame on you. Oh God. In addition to this, if you are someone who has benefited from my writing, coaching or spiritual direction and want to contribute to my PayPal account in order to make these opportunities available to others, it is greatly appreciated. You can contact me about spiritual direction through a Facebook message or a regular email to there's details. God, I really can't stand stuff like this that just meanders on with all this gobbledygook and then asks you to give money. It just gives you all these words like live the essence of your spiritual affiliation with integrity. How do you live the essence of anything? That's just gobbledygook. Identify and trust their own experiences of God. what does that mean? That's just complete nonsense. Integrate spirituality into the whole of their daily life. The term spirituality really bugs me. It's one of those words, whenever someone says they're spiritual, it just makes me shudder, like, ugh. Because what a sort of pretentious thing to say. It's like people who just can't possibly call themselves religious. This guy actually considers what he's promoting here to be non-religion. They just couldn't ever label themselves religious, because that's just way too, too mainstream. They've got to give themselves this, like, edgier, more alternative name, so they call it spirituality. I'm not religious, I'm very spiritual. I'm more about spirituality, and you just think that's, when you look at what spirituality is, it just is religion. It's just belief in higher powers, in supernatural forces. Oh god, so that's Jim Palmer, jimpalmerblog.com. I'm looking at the spiritual direction section of it there. There's also something on here called the Religion Free Bible Project. And when you click on that, it doesn't really come up with a lot. We just get, picture of a butterfly, a bit more symbolism and all that, and 25 reasons why it's time for a religion-free Bible. Do you mean religion-free Bible? I'll look at that. 1. The Bible is not a religious book. Yes, it is. 2. The story of the Bible has value for all of humankind, regardless of your religious tradition or no religion at all. I suppose it kind of, it's an interesting part of history, isn't it? Not that it's historically accurate, but it's a book that's played a big part in history, so I suppose it does have, it's worth reading. I'll agree with that, sort of. However, I suppose there are bits of it which make sense. There's certain stories where you think, oh, it's got a good story, but overall, we don't get to say really it has any actual definite value. The Bible is not owned by any particular sect of people, including institutional Christianity. The Bible is a spiritual resource for all people. This is multi-faithism, this idea. It's a sort of, obviously for charging money like this doofus is, that it's not, but I think for a lot of people multi-faithism is a very well-intentioned idea, but ultimately it's unworkable. The Bible doesn't allow for the religions. You can't have gods other than the Abrahamic God, unfortunately. So, nice idea, but it doesn't really work. The voice of the Bible deserves to be heard unshackled from the repressive spin often imposed upon it. I suppose I agree with that, however, you are trying to put your own spin on it here, really, aren't you? You're just unshackling from others. I agree, the Bible should just be read objectively. We shouldn't have to read it with the distortions placed upon it by apologists saying it really means this and not what it says. Contrary to what they say, there is more than one way to read, interpret and understand the Bible. Well, yeah, that's pretty obvious if you look at all the different denominations there are around the world. People need to know that the destructive and oppressive ideas they carry about God as a result of their involvement with religion are not truly biblical, purely speculative. You've actually said that, there's more than one way to interpret the Bible, and that no one really owns it. Then you've said something that's not truly biblical. So that's a contradiction. You said that no one gets to say for definite what this means, but now you're saying, now you're doing that. In the hands of the people, the Bible can be an instrument of love, beauty, peace, acceptance and harmony in the world. Well, that's if you ignore all the really unpleasant bits of it, I suppose, but even then, there's not a lot left when you do that. Humankind needs permission to walk away from the lie we learned about ourselves, that we are bad, not good enough, unacceptable to God, and something is wrong with us. Yeah, we need to walk away from that lie towards your lie. That's what you're trying to do here. Not very, very honest of you. Women need to be restored to their place of sacred significance that religion stripped from them. Okay. The Bible can be a profound inspiration for art in every form. I suppose it can, but so what? The separation between people because of religious differences needs to be dissolved. Let's be blunt about this, by dissolving religion, really, by discouraging people from religion, including yours, including this spirituality nonsense. Sorry. Yeah, including this spirituality nonsense. People need to walk away from that as well. God should not be the motivation or rationale for hatred, violence, oppression and prejudice. Good, okay, yeah. There are a myriad of options between fundamentalist and atheist. That's true, there are. Although atheist isn't really an option. It's just a conclusion you reach if you apply rationality to religious claims. If you apply the method of rationalism to religious claims, you will reach the conclusion of atheist. You haven't chosen it. If you can apply rationalism to religious claims and come to some other conclusion besides agnostic atheism, okay, I'd love to hear your argument, but I don't personally think you can really do it. Every human being needs to know of their inherent divine worth. That's just more gobbledygook there. It's time to stop arguing about God and start expressing the reality of the kingdom of God. That's still an argument. You're making an argument. You're presenting your viewpoint in the argument there. So don't think you're above the argument, sunshine. No human being, regardless of their gender, race, religion, sexual orientation or culture, should be denied their status as a card-carrying beloved child of God. Well, I suppose not, if that's really what you want. It's great to know that you practice equal opportunities in your rip-off. Jesus could not and would not subscribe to what is often passed off as biblical teaching. Well, no, he wouldn't. But then that's because, he's not around anymore. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole did he exist or did he not exist, let's assume he did. He wouldn't, because when he said all this stuff, it was written down by other people, and it's been translated poorly and mistranslated and retranslated over time. There's no way he could subscribe to it. He wouldn't even know what people were saying if he heard them speak now. They'd be speaking it all in English. He wouldn't have known what they were talking about. And again, that's an assertion. You said that there's different interpretations before. No one gets to say which is the right one, and then you've said what the right one is. You don't need an MDiv or a PhD in theology to embrace the simple but profound message of the Bible. Yeah, well, that's the real trick, isn't it? When you do get one of those things, people who do have those usually either carry on regardless, deluding themselves, or they do figure out that a lot of this stuff is just gobbledygook. There is no line between sacred and secular. Yes, there is. Secular very much means it's separate from religion, and that does include spirituality, which does fall under that same category. Humankind is not separated from and condemned by God. Well, that's probably because there is no God. Certainly not. The God of the Bible, I can say with as much certainty as anything else, doesn't exist. If there's some other kind of God out there, well, we don't know anything about it. And I'm saying it because there's no reason to think that God has a gender. So if there is, we don't know anything about it. There's no reason to believe there is. The world is not hopeless or too far gone to be transformed by love. Well, we're sort of into hippy-dippy-ish territory there. I suppose, yeah, there is hope that the world could pull itself together and stop fighting and all that if we work hard at it. But yeah, okay, but you've gone into the hippy-dippy area there. Our humanity is not the enemy or the obstacle to overcome. Okay, no, it's not. Because everyday people are suffering unnecessarily because of ideas they've learned about God, themselves, life and others. Well, they do, yes, but you're just throwing your own one of those into the pot again. You're saying, you're just doing what all these other denominations have done. That's all you're doing, you're setting up your own one and saying, this one's the real one. Well, newsflash, Bob, right, everyone who came before, every denomination before you did the same thing. They said that theirs was the right one. And that's why there's so many of them. Yours is just the latest in a long line. Our diversity as humankind is powerful and beautiful. A bit la-di-da, but I'll agree with that. God has no religion. Also, God doesn't believe in himself. So God's an atheist. But that is actually an interesting thought. What if God, went mental and didn't believe he existed anymore? There's something like that, just ignored the whole Cartesian idea of thinking that I think therefore I am. God would be an atheist. He didn't believe in himself anymore. Brilliant. So, yeah, that's just a bit of a brief look at Jim Palmer's website. This guy just seemed like another kook peddling his own brand of rip-off. I mean, I wouldn't mind so much if people had this these spiritual gobbledygook beliefs. You know, I mean, as silly as I find them, I can ignore them, but it's the PayPal thing that bothers me. If you're asking for any money for anything like this, you are an absolute charlatan. You are a snake in the grass, and you are deserving of every bit of mockery I've given you there. So yeah, that's his website. It's Jim Palmer. So yeah, jimpalmerblog.com if you want to have a look for yourself. Goodbye.